A new plane then today. I'm always on the lookout for planes which are suitable for beginners, and this one fits the bill. This is the Qidi, if you will, 560, and it's a complete solution in the box. As we'll see, it comes with the plane and the controller and everything else. Also at no expense whatsoever on the slow boat from China, the usual dings in the box. Hopefully the foam inside, it feels very solid, will have protected things. Let's take a look in the box. We have the usual manual. This appears to be nice and thick, so hopefully there's lots of good information in there. Everything seems to have been packed very well. The wing has survived. Just a couple of little creases right in the ends there. And there we can see the rest of the contents, the remote hiding down underneath the foam, the little plane itself, and unfortunately a broken propeller. That's a little sad. There's the charging cable. Usual anonymous screwdriver and a little Allen key wrench for something. Fortunately, a spare propeller. That's good news. Our undercarriage clearly. A small 1S 500 mAh LiPo. Our usual tacky remote control. I'm sure it will do the job to start with, and then hopefully I can work out what the protocol is to bind it to one of my Radio Master radios with the 4-in-1 module. And here's the little plane itself, the usual little combined gyro board there, little speed controller tacked on the top of it. We have ailerons clearly controlled there in a conventional manner, and rudder and elevator. So it should be capable of all standard maneuvers required. And the little battery hatch just underneath there, so everything appears to be intact apart from the propeller. I'll go ahead now and swap that propeller over, have a flick through the instructions and finish the assembly. The replacement propeller then in place there. I thought I'd show you in more detail the little flight controller board. It's quite interesting. You can see on the top here the speed controller is a separate board, the motor connection on the end there. Here we have the rudder connection and the elevator. The next socket there is for our aileron. Over on this side we have a spare socket here which is for the lights on the wing, and we have a plug in there which is a little light underneath here, which is quite cute. Also interesting to note the two sockets here which are labelled as S-Bus and DSM. It appears then that you can plug in your own receiver to the board, and I'm guessing the flight controller is clever enough to recognise that there's a signal on one of those pins and switch over to the external receiver. All clever stuff. On the wing then we can see the connector here for the ailerons themselves and the little connector for the lights, which you can see on the end of the wing there. In the bag are supplied two self-tapping screws. The larger pan head one is for fixing the landing gear, and this one will be for fixing the wing into the plastic piece here. Our next challenge then is to get these connectors on into the flight controller. For that we're going to need some forceps. Oh, wait a minute, are they hemostats? All the same to me. The servo wire is longer, so we'll try and put that in first. Finally, that is in place. And finally, the lights. So the tab here will fit under the front, and the screw will go in the top there. underneath the wing braces just slot in. Little bit of a fiddly job, but they slot in down from the top here. When you eventually get them into place, you could hear them click there. They're now quite solid. Finally then, with the screw there to hold it all in place. Make sure when you're screwing that in that the wing is flush with the top of the fuselage there. Otherwise you'll find the screw just goes round and round until it's actually located into that hole in the plastic. Before we get carried away, I guess we'd better just check that everything is working. Switching on the transmitter then and connecting our battery up. Yes, we've got lots of pretty lights flashing, so everything's connected. So everything is working so far. I'll get on and put the wheels on and we'll see where we go from there. The finished plane then. Nice big wheels there. It does say cross country on it for some bizarre reason, so presumably it can take off from fairly rough terrain. As with a lot of these models, you power the plane up first and then turn the transmitter on, which then beeps. We can see that the lights are flashing at this point. And move the throttle to the fully up position and you hear the beeps there. And now it is armed. This top switch here is the different modes. So when it's towards you, it's in the 6G or beginner mode, which is fully stabilized. And then it beeps twice in the middle position, which is just gyro. So that will just correct for any uncommanded inputs, i.e. wind. And then 3 beeps fully down is in manual mode. So there's no gyro stabilization there. You can see there our aileron movement is sufficient. There's not very much deflection on the rudder or indeed on the elevator. Looking at where they've positioned the control, we have 2 holes that we could move it in to get further throw on the rudder there. Similarly, on the elevator we have 2 spare holes, so we could increase the throw on that. But for the first flight I'm going to leave it as it is. Something else to note is that there's no keepers on the control horns. I happen to have a couple which I'd 3D printed. What I'm going to do then is to put those over as the keepers there with just a dab of Yoo-hoo pour to keep that in place. Another thing to keep an eye on is that the hinges, if you will, are just the foam of which the plane is made. So keep an eye on those. Over time that may weaken or even come apart and you'd have to rehinge that with some tape or method of your choice. There it is then. It's extremely light. I'll put how much it weighs on the bottom of the screen. All in all, for €60 plus shipping, I don't think you can go far wrong. Obviously the proof will be in flying, which is going to be the next thing to do. Just before that, another mention, cowling just pops off for access to the motor, and it's quite serviceable. There are spares available, motors, batteries, the flight controller, everything. Again, links to those in the video description. Last thing to mention is that the 15-page manual booklet is quite comprehensive. I do like that they've put in all the safety cautions there, the description of the flight controller sockets, and for beginners, obviously, the advice here: fly in a spacious ground without obstacles or trees, never fly near highways, railways, high tension lines, crowded people and residential areas. And it recommends obviously flying it in calm conditions as it is so light. And lastly, on the back there, some advice on how to change the various components should you need to. Without further ado then, let's find a suitable flying site and put it in the air. This is more my level. It said 14 on the box. Right, let's have a go with this little guy. All the controls seem to be working. We've got it in the beginner mode, and that beeping from the transmitter is every minute. I don't think there's any voltage telemetry from the craft, so let's see how we go. Well, nice easy takeoff, and as we would expect with a 6-axis gyro, it's nice and stable. And the lights are useful today because it's unusually cloudy for this part of the world. And there she is, completely hands-free. Obviously in the 6-axis gyro mode, the bank angle and vertical angle is limited there. You can see it just hovering. So that protects you from doing anything too silly. So we're cruising around here just about half throttle. Completely silent, really. Very pretty. So for the beginner learning, I don't think you can go far wrong. Just don't let the speed drop too much as I did then. Doesn't want to seem to turn to the left as much as the right. That's probably due to the torque of the prop. But as you can see, lovely and stable. And a lot of fun, which is what it's about, really. Not quite sure what flight time we're going to get, but that's been at least 4 or 5 minutes so far. Very nice. Downwind, well, it's not very much of a wind, just a very light breeze right now. And there she is on the deck. It's not very much throw on the rudder and the elevator. I think that could do with moving the controls. Off we go again. Just to see if we can use up the battery. Let's get a little bit of height there. And we're now into the completely just gyro mode, and you can see that it's an awful lot more aerobatic. So flipping it back into 6 gyro mode, so if you get into a silly situation, then you can just flip it back into a fully gyro mode, which is very useful for training. So once again, beeps twice, so we're now in the 3D, no sorry, we're just in the gyro mode, not fully stabilized mode. And if we get into trouble, we can just flip it back in. So there we are, a nice little model. I'll put a link to the RC Groups thread which discusses this and modifications that you can do. The nose is rather weak, so that's one of the things you might do or might have to do if you prang it. Let's bring her back in now. And into the rough. So all in all, an awful lot of fun, which is what it's all about for me. 60 euros or so, I don't think you can go far wrong. Thanks for watching.